Welcome back, Blade Gang. We have a fixed blade for you today. I've been getting into fixed blades. Bob DeMarco of the Knife Junkie tells me so is he. As a matter of fact, he did this very same knife ahead of me, and I thought for sure I had the first one on the block. They've been out for a little while. It is by Fox Knives, and it is referred to as the Ryu. And it's a design by Black Rock Knives. That's Black ROC Knives. And the designer is Ken V. Heck, V. I'm going to butcher his name. V. Hecate. I'm going to stand on that. Ken V. Hecate. Bob tells me that Ken is not in good health. He is going to auction off his copy on the Knife Junkie at some point, either this week or the next, I think by early May, maybe sooner. So I think that is a very worthy cause. If you like this knife, I would urge you to participate in that auction on the Knife Junkie in support of the man who is the owner of Black Rock Knives and a great designer. He's got, I think, at least 2 designs now out with Fox, this one and one other. That's kind of a karambit style knife. I don't have the name at the front of my mind, but I'm rambling on. That's the deal with the background on the knife. It is a traditionally styled Tanto blade. Long before Cold Steel came out with the chisel point Tanto, and I'm not knocking that knife because I've got a bunch of chisel point Tantos, and kudos to Lynn for making them popular. I reviewed one of the very first ones of his back around 1984 when he sent me a bunch of his knives to be reviewed, and they ended up in a Inside Kung Fu magazine article. It was kind of the year of the Tanto at the time. The Tantos and balisongs were just becoming big. Okay, so a little background from Blade HQ. The Fox Knives Ryu comes from the FKMD military division line. It has materials and build that prove it worthy of that distinction. The blade is made of premium Niolox stainless steel that can take a beating and remain functional. The knife has a hollow grind that aids in cutting power. And by the way, Bob will tell you on his review that he cut himself almost immediately upon opening the knife from the box and taking it out of the paper guard. He can attest to how aggressive it is. And I think he wants to keep it, but he's going to auction it. It includes a Kydex sheath, micarta handle, and a stonewash blade. So let's show you what it is, then we'll run over some specs. It is a beautifully sculpted blade. It's got some decent weight, very useful jimping, a lovely crowned spine, nice swedge right at the top. The hollow grind starts pretty high, so you got a hell of a cutting edge. You got a hell of a penetrating point with a good amount of meat still. See if we can get that in focus so you can see that. I think if I back out a little bit, I'll get a little better depth of field here. There we go. The way cameras phase detection sensors are set up and contrast detection sensors focuses very easily one direction but not another. I won't get into all of that. Got a large ring here, not big enough for your fingers, so don't think about that. Can certainly weave a bunch of lanyards through there, or a piece of rope, what have you. It has a pointed skull crushing style pommel, which can be used as a glass breaker as well. You don't need a carbide ball there to have it be a glass breaker. You just need a defined piece of metal. We have domed head style recessed screws on both sides. Look like about a Torx, maybe T10 or so. Haven't checked that. This, if it was on a tops knife, I think they'd call it Rocky Mountain Tread. It's kind of similar, but this is more evenly grooved. Speaking of grooves, we have 2-finger grooves, and the rest of your fingers can go where they like. So I find that that doesn't constrain the grip whatsoever. Speaking of the grip, it can go point down. It can easily, of course, go point up. It squares up nicely with the grip, so it's 90 degrees. So for your Filipino knife work, this is perfect. Let's run down the specs. And we're going to talk a little bit about niobium in the Nylox steel. Overall length of this fixed blade is 10.62 inches. To be precise, 10.625. The blade length is 5¼ inches. Seems bigger, but it's 5¼ Blade width, top to bottom, 1.25. Blade material, Nylox. We don't have a blade thickness. We're going to get that on our own. Handle length is 5.25 inches. Handle thickness is 3/4 inch, 0.75 inches. It is a micarta handle. They're calling the color here green. I'd call it more of a greenish tan. Of course, that's going to change with the oils in your hand. That's what Kydex, or not Kydex, that's what micarta likes to do. It's kind of porous, and it'll begin to darken with use. It's made in Italy, in Maniago, Italy, by Fox Knives. Comes with a Kydex sheath. And the weight, yes, is 7.9 ounces. Not going to be as light as a folder, folks. It's a fixed blade, and it's a pretty good size one. So, since Blade HQ left off the blade thickness, that's easy enough for us to check. So let's do that. 5mm blade stock. Very nice, solid, significant blade stock. Comparing this to a few other blades, I happen to have handy the Reich F1. F for fixed blade, 1 for their first fixed blade. A very unusual design compared to a straightforward Tanto of the Ryu, but pretty much the same size. Slightly longer in the blade, more towards 6 inches on that one. And then we have the Nordic knives designed by Viking Tactics, the Norseman. And that's kind of a cool blade. It's a bigger one by at least an inch. And this has an interesting, this is tops again. This has an interesting two-tone micarta handle with some very nice vine design jimping all the way around, almost like a custom knife with a red liner. I sort of like this one, although it's not as hand-filling as the Ryu. I really like the handle on the Ryu, must say. Just conforms perfectly to my grip. It's contoured and yet heavily textured. It doesn't bite the hand. The jimping is very effective. This would be my choice for a all-purpose camp knife, combat knife, protect myself knife if I could carry something large enough. Not overly large, plenty of pommel, useful. Um, you know, you could EDC this as a fixed blade knife in the right conditions all day long. I think I got all the specs on it. And again, to benefit the designer of Black Rock Knives, who's in kind of a bad way medically right now, he's recovering. Bob's got the specifics if you look at his review on his channel. I would encourage you to participate in the auction. This blade comes in pretty much everywhere for about 170 bucks. So, bid. It is a great one. The Ryu by Fox Knives. And yes, I find myself running away without telling you a little bit about Niolox. So here's the data from Knife Steel compositions. You can freeze frame that, but I'll read it. Stain resistant tool steel with good edge holding and decent toughness. Contains niobium, one of the best carbide formers, although there is not a lot of it in the alloy. In knives, typically working hardness range is 58 to 63 Rockwell, even without PM technology, that's powder metallurgy. It is a very fine grained steel, which obviously is a positive and aids with edge stability. Strangely, even though it's not an expensive alloy, it's not very popular with knife makers, but it's mainly used by German, French, and Belgian knife makers. It is closest to AISID2 in wear resistance and edge stability. Sorry for the long explanation. You could have read it on the screen, I realize. Hope you enjoyed this review. Give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe. This Old Sword, signing out. Well, didn't show you the sheath, folks, so I'm going to pop this in somewhere. There is your Kydex sheath. Very nice fit. First thing I noticed, no rattle. And it does come with two inside the waistband straps. Right there, with I presume one-way snap, so you can convert this from Tech-Lock to inside the waistband carry, your choice. So again, comes with a really nice Kydex sheath. Thank you. Once again, don't forget to like it and subscribe.